my fellow fallible humans. Welcome to the Red Roof Recovery Show. This is an addiction recovery program to soften the path of recovery from substance and behavioral addictions. I'm your host. My name is Tanya McIntyre, and I am so grateful that you are here spending the next 30 minutes with us as I share my experience, strength, and hope around my own recovery from drugs and alcohol. First, though, I want to take a moment to thank my friend, my mentor, a very talented singer-songwriter musician. His name is Russell Allen Scott, and he has gifted me the use of this beautiful theme song that he wrote. It's called Greatest Bravery, and it's from his CD titled The Master Key. Thanks so much, Russell. And you know what? I'm so grateful for that song in so many ways because it's significant for me to have a theme song for this show called Greatest Bravery, because it certainly did take great bravery for me to come out of the proverbial closet to start talking publicly about my addictions to drugs and alcohol, because I did manage my addictions for a very long time through a successful broadcasting career, in fact. And then I founded Red Roof Recovery just before the world was slammed with the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic in March of 2020. We certainly started to feel the ripple effects of that in Ontario, Canada. And it kind of slammed the door on my plans to develop a residential program that I was intending to run from my home. But thankfully, things are back on track and running. So if you or someone you know thinks that you might benefit from a unique residential recovery program where you have your own self-contained apartment and you're knee to knee with me for 1 week, you come Friday after work, and you leave the following Friday after lunch. It's an extraordinary, effective program that's founded on the principles of what I talk about all the time: cognitive behavioral therapy. And people ask me all the time, what does cognitive mean? Cognition is thinking. It's just thinking therapies, and there are lots of thinking therapies. I think the key in life and in addiction recovery is to keep that key going into different locks, find something that works for you and keep doing more of that, because we're all different. Our addictions are different and our recovery is going to be different. We need to get something customized for us and then do more of it. As one of my favorite mentors, Dr. David Burns, says, the most crucial predictor of recovery is having a persistent willingness to make consistent efforts to help yourself. So thanks so much for David Burns for mentoring me. You can learn more about Dr. David Burns. He's a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy, and he has a fantastic resourceful website at feelinggood.com. And his books, feelinggood.com, fantastic body of work from Dr. David Burns. And it's an effective treatment, a bibliotherapy for the treatment of depression and anxiety, drug-free. And it certainly has helped me and continues to help me with my depression and anxiety. So thank you for being here as we talk about different topics around addiction recovery and mental health disorders in general, because I do believe that addiction is a mental health disorder. I'm grateful to have my partner of more than 30 years, my husband, my best friend, Lancelot, is back to impart his wisdom with us. And Lance lived through my addictions, and he's wonderful to impart his experience as a family member of a loved one who was challenged with substance use disorder. And we're here to talk about something that comes up all the time in SMART recovery meetings. I'm a facilitator with SMART, Self-Management and Recovery Training. I became a certified facilitator with SMART in 2018. And I often say that AA, the 12-step program of AA, saved my life, and SMART gave me my life back. When I went into rehab back in 2009, the 12-step program was the primary model of recovery in rehab facilities at that time. So I still continue to go to AA meetings. If you can find good 12-step meetings, fantastic. They're great for peer support. It's a wonderful personal development program. And I do enjoy going to AA meetings because of that peer support. I have friendships that will last a lifetime from my time spent in AA meetings. And it was the time spent in 12-step meetings, actually, that had me seeking a more secular support program, something that I could bring to my community, because I was going to a lot of funerals in my 8-9 years in 12-step meetings. A lot of my peers weren't returning from their lapses or relapses, and I knew it was going to probably be a matter of time before I didn't return from one of my relapses, because in that 8-9 years of 12-step doctrine and programming, I was a chronic relapser. And it was reaching a point where I was frightened that I wasn't going to come back from my next relapse. So SMART was definitely the key for me and continues to be a key for me. So I'll be sharing the philosophies of cognitive behavioral therapy, and there are lots of cognitive behavioral therapies that we're going to be talking about here. One of my favorites is REBT, Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, and that was the brainchild of Albert Ellis and a couple of his students, Wendy Dryden and Walter Matwichuk. Dr. Matwichuk has a fantastic resourceful website at rebtdoctor.com. And he holds a conversational hour every Saturday morning. I love starting my weekends with Walter at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. If you go to rebtdoctor.com and sign up for his newsletter, you will receive that link for his Zoom conversation. I always learn so much during that hour because he takes a volunteer from his audience of 100 or so people that join that every week, and he works through something called the ABCs of Rational Emotive Behavioral Therapy. It's a wonderful tool of recovery and of life, so I highly recommend that. So let's get to it, Lancelot. You have been an expert communicator with me over the course.
I wouldn't say that.
Oh, I certainly would. I've always given you credit for our marriage lasting over 30 years now, and you are my best friend. And I'm grateful for our relationship, and I'm grateful for you facing one of your biggest fears, talking publicly, being on camera. I'm grateful that you're here to alleviate my anxiety around that. Thank you.
Strange that you have anxiety after all this time.
Yeah, isn't it? You would think it would get better with time. I think I learned to carry it differently, for sure. I try not to think too much about being on camera because I'm grateful for the stage for producing this on camera for me, and also for producing the audio version, which I send to my favorite radio station in Kitchener, 98.5 CKWR. It's the multicultural station in Waterloo region, and I've been volunteering with them for a long time. So Mark at the station here in Goderich, Ontario, when we moved here, he was very receptive to not only producing the audio for me so I could send it to Kitchener and not have to drive that 90 minutes every week, and also doing the video recording, which is available on YouTube, which is the second most watched medium in the world. So that kind of fills me with anxiety because I stayed in radio for a reason. I was not comfortable in front of a camera. So here we are. So communication comes up a lot in SMART meetings, and SMART is all about, as I pointed out today, because in our SMART meetings, you can range from anywhere from 10 people to 50 people to 150 people sometimes. My meetings normally get around 50 people, and you can't be all things to all people. And sometimes there will be somebody checking in that is not staying focused on recovery and tools and solutions-based tips and ideas. We all like to take a few laps in the pity pool, right? The key is to know when to get out and dry off. Mm-hmm. And as a facilitator, it's my job to redirect people to stay focused on their recovery and come up with solutions and strategies and techniques and tools that we can use to redirect our unhelpful thinking patterns. And a lot of that is just communication, for sure. Absolutely. How do we communicate to people that what they're saying is not helpful?
Well, everything's communication. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter what you're doing.
Right.
And effective communication, when you say, you can't be everything to everyone, everyone is different. Everyone receives information in a different way. Mm-hmm. So, For instance, if I talk to you about something mechanically technical,
My eyes glaze over.
I think I'm putting in the most simple terms. And normally I have to draw something or show you what I'm actually going to do because you just can't get it.
Yes, and it's important to know how you communicate, and there are some tests that you
Very
can do
much so.
that. One of my favorites, actually, is from another mentor of mine called Michael Lozier. He's a Canadian law of attraction expert, and Michael lives out in beautiful British Columbia, and he's an NLP specialist as well. So he talks about how we can build rapport with people and also break it instantly if we're not communicating with their communication styles. We all have different communication styles. I'm a visual learner and often a visual communicator. You know, can you see what I mean? Some people are auditory learners, so they learn by listening. Some people are kinesthetic learners. They talk about feeling. You know,
Hands-on, yeah.
and then there's a digital learner. Engineer people are digital type learners.
What do you mean by digital? As in
Well, that's a good question.
the digital
it's more,
world or digits actually hands-on?
like a functional
Because I
black
was
and white kind of, yeah. With engineers, and I don't want to tar everyone with the same brush. When I'm making a comment about groups of people, I mean, SMART has taught me not to label people. So I'm very cognizant of trying to stay away from labeling people and groups of people. However, my experience with a lot of people who their vocation is engineering, it takes a specific kind of digital rational thinking that I don't have, for sure. As a visual learner, I don't have it. I'm very emotional too. Kinesthetic is part of my learning styles. And with engineers, they can't understand why I don't understand. How could you not understand that? It's simple.
As in when
it's a
I
simple
try
concept.
to explain something
Right.
mechanical to. It's because in engineering, if you've got a problem, you work through it. Or if you're trying to make a machine to solve a certain problem. If I have A and I put B to it, I get C, and A, B, and C will get me to D, which makes the part. It's very linear, it's very controlled. If A and B don't work, then A and C might work, or B and C. So it's very structured, you get taught to think a certain way.
Well, that's certainly what cognitive behavioral therapy is, for sure, as well, right? It's a structured way of thinking, learning how
but
to
I think
reframe.
with cognitive behavioral therapy, when it comes to behaviours, you're talking about people, and people are far more complex than machines.
Right.
In our physiology and in our mental makeup. Because, as you well know, in communication, it's not always what you say, it's how you say it.
Ooh, do I know that? You remind me often.
No, you remind me, because apparently no one gets upset when I say something, but if you say exactly the same thing,
I know. It's the
People
tone
can-
of voice I use. Yeah.
tone of voice, you have a very matter-of-fact way of putting things. Well, there you go.
Direct.
Very direct.
Yeah. For instance, this morning was garbage day. So we have 2 floors in our house, and we have a garbage receptacle upstairs and a couple downstairs as well. So as we're collecting garbage, I had the garbage from upstairs collected in a bag that was by the door. It was a pathway to the door to go downstairs. There's the garbage bag right there. However, I didn't communicate it to Lance, and he's downstairs collecting the garbage and putting out some stinky food that we had kept in the fridge for garbage day. So he was anxious to get it out because it didn't smell very, very good. And he tied it up very, very tightly
To stop the smell.
at the curb so it wouldn't attract animals until the garbage truck comes to pick it up. So I come downstairs with the garbage bag that I have, and my intention is to put it in the big garbage bag, which I can't open the knot because it's too tight. So I came in, and again, it's how I said it, because I was frustrated, and I've got this internal dialogue going on in my mind. Like, I can't believe, why didn't he just ask for help? Why didn't he tell me what he was doing? Why could he not see that the garbage bag was right there? How could he pass that and not see it? And all of this ridiculous dialogue going on in my head then accumulates into what I call unhelpful, an unhelpful comment to say, something sarcastic, and could you have done a better chokehold on that garbage bag, or something like that? It was not kind.
No, but you also said, didn't you see it? Which is redundant.
How could you not see the garbage bag? It was right there in your path.
Which is rather redundant, because obviously I didn't see it. But
right, and assumptuous. Yeah,
an assumption.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
stating the obvious. Which again,
I often state the obvious, don't I?
a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I do it now and again as well. Everyone does.
But I use sarcasm with it, which is not helpful, because that is considered what we call in communication styles passive aggressive. Totally unhelpful.
It's unlike you to be passive aggressive.
Oh, come on.
Normally you're just aggressive.
Thanks.
You can be, as I say, you can be very direct. A lot of people can. I have one daughter that's very direct and one daughter that isn't. And again, you can do the same thing, say the same thing, and have two totally different reactions from the same person.
That's why I encourage everybody to take the advice of SMART, which I endeavor to take myself as well, which...
Endeavor being the optimum word.
Strive. I didn't take the advice to practice the pause. So we have lots of acronyms in SMART. SMART stands for Self-Management and Recovery Training. And lots of acronyms when referring to tools, because for some, it's easier to recognize the acronym to remember what it stands for some. And there is an acronym for practicing the pause, and it's called STOP, S-T-O-P. So me being a visual learner, when I learned this tool of communication, I like to see the actual stop sign flashing up in my mind. That big red stop sign reminds me to wait. Wah, 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 leave it in draft. Whoa, whoa, slow down. So the stop is stop. The T is for take a breath, or take however many you need. So for me, I like to even, take a pause to say, that's a very interesting question. Maybe let me get back to you on that, or not even a question. Oh, that's an interesting thought. Let me contemplate that. That's my favorite word. Let's contemplate, and I'll get back to you on that. Just to practice that pause, to put it in draft. Give your time to then move into the O of the STOP acronym, to observe. So what you're doing with the observance is observing how I feel, and observing how someone else might feel in this situation. Thinking about the ideal outcome that I would like to have from this exchange of communication, and thinking about what the options are. How is the best response going to be delivered to get me the outcome that I would ideally like to have here? And then the P is for proceed.
Well, I think the problem nowadays is that if you go back in time, there were basically two types of communication: the written word, the letter, or face-to-face. So obviously with face-to-face communication, the person that you're communicating to can ask questions. You can see if they're visually upset with what you've said. There's a whole dynamic that goes on there. With the written word, to actually write with a pen and then read it through to make sure, and then put it in an envelope and walk to the post office. That is your pause, or used to be. And then we had the telephone. Well, the telephone, there have been some studies that show that you can tell if someone's lying better on the telephone than you can face to face. There's something in the mannerisms of, like, when you're not visually seeing a person, where the markers can confuse you. When you just hear the person, you can tell if they're lying better than if you're in person. But it's still not a great communication device because you're not seeing the person, you haven't got all other clues and what have you. And then we move in a digital age where Twitter and text and email, which is least because it's instantaneous, there is no pause, there's very little, especially with Twitter, what is it, 150 characters, I think, something like that, which you can't communicate anything really meaningful. So we've moved into a place where we've got so many more ways of communicating, but none of them that give you that stop. There is no stop anymore. Everything's instantaneous. And this is where a lot of communication falls down, I think.
Yeah, I agree. We use something there's a family and friends division of SMART that I love as well. Because, definitely, as a family member going through addictions with me, as your loved one, the challenges that you're going through just as much as I was going through in your own way.
Yeah, obviously.
Feeling helpless, hopeless.
Yeah, obviously it's different. Yeah. There's a different path to where, as a family member, you need to get to. As opposed to, because obviously the family member doesn't have the addiction. But in some ways we're addicted to trying to help the person, even to the detriment of yourself sometimes.
Exactly. That's where the airplane analogy comes in handy,
Yes.
and I remind people all the time, if you've ever flown in one of those metal tubes that go in the air, we are instructed if the cabin pressure changes and the oxygen mask falls from the ceiling, we are instructed to put the mask on yourself first. You can't help anybody until you help yourself first. Very difficult concept for a lot of us to embrace because it's construed to be selfish to do anything for yourself. So it's a paradox of communication that's a stumbling block for many people in relationships. So in family and friends of SMART, we use yet another acronym, and this one is PIUS, for positive and effective communication, PIUS. The P includes positive statements in your conversation, and do your best to avoid negative comments. And then the I of PIUS is using I statements to help you communicate your needs and your wishes, and do it without blaming, shaming, or criticizing the other person. This is huge because as we learn in the ABCs of rational emotive behavioral therapy, we often go to the adversity of the A, the adversity of life, or the activating event. The B is for beliefs. We skip over those beliefs and we go directly to the consequences. We're A-C thinkers. So we often say, your behavior caused my whatever in our communication. So it's really important to keep it about I. I feel is one of my favorites. The U is understanding. So you've got P, positive, I statements, U, understanding. So you want to listen and reflect back exactly what you've heard. You want to show your loved one that you understand and respect their point of view, even when you may not agree with it. You just want to convey to them that you understand what they're saying and you respect their point of view. And then the S of PIUS is sharing responsibility. It's a shared responsibility. And when you accept and share responsibility, you're demonstrating to your loved one that you understand and acknowledge your part in the problem, which can go a long, long way in breaking a conflict cycle, which is so common in relationships with people. And it's a breakdown of communication. That's why the only people who win in divorce settlements are the lawyers.
Very much so, yeah. Yeah. The communication within the marriage or within the family unit. I mean, if you've got children and you've got your parents, and as we know, you didn't get on very well with my father, and there's a whole dynamic going on there. The communication we have is different with every family member because we're all individual. And as I say, the way one person conveys information doesn't mean if you're sitting there with a whole room of people and you convey something, there's going to be a myriad of different interpretations of what you've said, because everyone has a different bias.
Yeah.
So to jump to conclusions, when I say, like, I communicate something, to jump to the conclusion that you've understood it the way that I've
Delivered it. Yeah.
delivered it is erroneous. There's no way I know that you've received it the way, in actual likelihood, you've most probably received it in a slightly different way than I intended it, because we're two different people.
Yeah.
So effective communication is communicating and then backing up to see if the information I've imparted has been received in a way that what often happens is the person says something, it's received in a different way, and that person doesn't respond. They either react or they internalize. The reaction.
And what happens when we internalize? Resentments grow.
Yeah.
It's like you doing the fermented veggies that we're calling veggies now. So I'm watching Lance go through this process now of fermenting vegetables, because we want to get, the whole gut thing that we were spending a fortune on probiotics. So Lance said, now that I'm retired, I'm going to come up with a natural way that we can generate all those healthy enzymes.
Microbiome.
Thank you. In our tummies in a more natural way. So he's fermenting veggies. And now I understand why people who are doing kimchi at home are kicked out to the garage to do it, because it can be a smelly endeavor for sure, process. So I can't even remember what was...
I don't know.
Where was I going with the
there you
veggie
go.
story? Oh, man, I hate that. I want to put a whiteboard around my neck thinking, like, this thought starts here and ends there. So, no, I've lost it.
Yeah.
As happens so often.
Has happened.
Fermented veggies. Oh, yes, thank you. Because when you put the fermented veggies in the container and cover it, the purpose is that now it's got to ferment. And the fermentation, you can watch it, physically watch it, bubbling to the top, and then like a volcano, it starts coming out over the top. So that's what happens when we internalize. It's coming out one way or another,
Yeah,
right?
it ferments
It's
in there.
fermenting, yeah.
And, instead of saying, if you're not sure, instead of saying, do you mean this? Did I understand this correctly?
Yeah, this is how I understood it. You want to try to be verbatim and saying, okay, so what I understand is that, and you want to try to repeat it back exactly as you heard them.
Yeah,
And stay focused on facts instead of what we think.
because,
I think I heard. No, that's not what I said.
well, we all hear what we want to
That's
hear
not what I
most of
meant. Right, exactly.
A lot of the time, that's all we want to hear. We want to hear what we want to hear.
No kidding. Oh, my darling Lancelot, thank you for everything you do. I'm so grateful you're retired.
Thank you.
We're enjoying
I'm
life
grateful
together.
I'm retired.
And thank you for being on this show. I know you're facing one of your greatest fears, being here with me, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You are an integral part of my recovery journey, so I appreciate you being here. Some shameless self-promotion now. My 2 books, Mindful Wisdom from My Philosopher Dad, some sage advice from a single father, a legacy to my father. He was an extraordinary man. And then through the pandemic, to keep my own sanity, I did a journal of inspirational messages on lined pages, daily wisdom from my philosopher dad, some inspiration to guide your days. I would like you to reflect on that, do some writing, very therapeutic, can be life transformational, the power of the written word. My name is Tanya McIntyre. May the force be with you. And remember, you are the force.